Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, a residential remodeling company guided by discipline, preparation, and attention to detail. Call Mosby.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Wednesday, February 25th. I'm Abby Larico. The Missouri Republican Party is mulling over how national headwinds could affect key state legislative races and ballot initiatives.
So that's going to be a test for the Republicans in Missouri. Can we put the Trump group together in an off year?
St. Louis Public Radio's Jason Rosenbaum reports on how Missouri Republicans are preparing for a difficult election cycle, coming up after this news on The Gateway. The St. Louis NAACP filed federal and state civil rights complaints against the Bi-State Development Agency. That's after a man died near one of its Metrolink stations last week. St. Louis Public Radio's Andrea Henderson has details.
On video surveillance obtained by KMOV, 3 Metro security officers are seen pulling Derek Hodges from inside the Union Station Metrolink to a nearby bench at about 1 a.m. on February 16th. Security called the police, but a few minutes later, the guards canceled their request. Adolphus Pruitt is the NAACP St. Louis chapter president. He says the police could have potentially saved Hodges' life.
I think they would have sought out medical attention for him, took him to a shelter, would have used their crisis intervention team. There was just so many tools that the police department has in their toolbox.
Bi-State Development said in a statement that it's performing an internal review of the incident and working with authorities. I'm Andrea Henderson, St. Louis Public Radio.
Former U.S. Representative Cori Bush is making another run for Missouri's 1st congressional district, which includes St. Louis. Bush and a team of supporters made the trip to Jefferson City yesterday morning on the first day of filing to run in Missouri's August 4th Democratic primary. Bush lost to current U.S. Representative Wesley Bell in 2024. She has publicly criticized him for taking what she called dark money from a pro-Israel PAC.
This time the tide has already turned and people are saying no, that they want to be the ones to pick their representatives. And so whether that money filters into the community or not, I think the community is also going to call out any candidate who is accepting that money.
Bell also appeared in Jefferson City to file for office. He says he's more focused on tornado relief and the cost of living than the matchup with Bush.
I'm going to continue to focus on that, and we're going to continue to work on the things that are needed to wake up this sleeping giant that we call St. Louis.
Bell got 51% of the vote last time. Representative Emanuel Cleaver was the first candidate to file for office in Missouri yesterday. That's despite uncertainty over the boundaries of the district he hopes to represent. The Missouri Independent reports the 11-term Democratic incumbent is running for re-election in the Kansas City area 5th District. Cleaver's seat became a target when Missouri Republicans acted in accordance with President Donald Trump's request to redraw the state's congressional map last fall. That included splitting up Kansas City into multiple districts that all lean Republican. A Cole County judge is expected to decide soon if the new gerrymandered map is in effect for this year's election or if the 2022 lines hold until voters can weigh in. 4 GOP candidates filed to represent the 5th District shortly after Cleaver finished his paperwork. Some city families may see their school days begin later in the coming years. St. Louis Public Schools is considering pushing back start times for students. But as STLPR's Hiba Ahmed reports, school board members want more information first.
The Thrive Time Initiative is the district's effort to streamline transportation and increase student attendance. The proposal would have middle and high school students start at 8 a.m. and elementary students start at 9:30. But some school board members expressed concern that the district's recommendation wasn't in line with scientific research on students' sleep habits. The American Association for Pediatrics, for example, recommends middle and high school students start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. The board encouraged the district to gather more feedback from families before it votes to approve next steps. The changes could take effect in the 2027-2028 school year. I'm Hiba Ahmed, St. Louis Public Radio.
Washington University plans to acquire the St. Louis College of Pharmacy and create its own pharmacy school. The school is part of the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy in the Central West End. St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Fenton has details on what's happening next.
WashU will also acquire UHSP's campus and sunset its 3 other schools. UHSP used to be called the St. Louis College of Pharmacy. During the pandemic, it rebranded after expanding its academic offerings and becoming a university. Its president, Brian Size, says those efforts weren't enough to rectify the school's financial challenges. He says UHSP struggled as one of the few pharmacy schools not attached to a larger institution.
Almost all the other ones are really attached to other larger or bigger universities so that you get away from being just dependent on one degree.
The two parties did not disclose financial details about the acquisition, which the government and accrediting agencies will need to approve. I'm Sarah Fenton, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Missouri Republican Party is riding an unprecedented wave of success into the 2026 election cycle. But the party's leaders acknowledge that in this midterm election, with critical ballot initiatives, they're facing some serious national headwinds. St. Louis Public Radio's Jason Rosenbaum has this report from the recent Missouri GOP Lincoln Days in Springfield.
Lincoln Days is the Missouri Republican Party's biggest event of the year, and it always provides a snapshot in time for how the state Republicans are feeling about their political standing. The party's elected officials and activists are conflicted. They control every statewide office, have commanding majorities in the Missouri General Assembly, and hold most of the state's congressional seats. And the 2026 election cycle isn't likely to knock Missouri Republicans out of power. Even Democrats concede they're unlikely to oust Republican State Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick, the only statewide office holder up for election this year.
Obviously, I'm a conservative. People know that. I have a voting record, and I'm proud of it. But I'm also here to do a job, and I'm going to continue to do that job, and that's what I'm going to run on.
But Missouri Republicans are mindful that history is not on their side. That's because midterm elections are often bad for the party, which holds the presidency. And President Donald Trump's approval rating slumped thanks to economic anxiety and outrage over his immigration tactics. He's even faced some pushback from Republicans over his foreign policy decisions and his administration's handling of the Epstein files. Republican State Representative George Haruza of St. Louis County says those national headwinds could make for a challenging environment there. St. Louis County is home to competitive state house contests and perhaps a tougher than usual re-election battle for GOP Congresswoman Ann Wagner.
The Democrats have always been better at getting the turnout, and then, as you mentioned, some of those other issues seem to motivate or energize the Democrats.
What Haruza was partially alluding to was how there will be a number of critical ballot initiatives up for statewide votes this year, including measures restricting abortion, curtailing the initiative petition process, and possibly upholding a more Republican congressional map. While former House Speaker Elijah Haar is confident that Republicans can push back against strong opposition campaigns, he says getting GOP voters to the polls could be challenging.
When Trump's on the ballot, his voters come out, they come out heavy, Republicans win big. When he's not been on the ballot, the Republicans have really struggled how to get that coalition together. And so that's going to be a test for the Republicans of Missouri. Can we put the Trump group together in an off year?
A big test could be in Springfield, which will have competitive state Senate and House races. To win those contests, Greene County Presiding Commissioner Bob Dixon, a former member of the Missouri House and Senate, says his fellow Republicans will have to reach out beyond their comfort zone.
I just succeeded this week in getting the endorsement of the Libertarian Party in Greene County. So, we are all about building coalitions in this part of the state. And anyway, I think it's going to be a tough year, but we have tough candidates who will get the job done.
So the big takeaway from Missouri Republican Party Lincoln Days is that the state GOP isn't panicking, but they know this critical election cycle can't be taken for granted. I'm Jason Rosenbaum, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our Fred Ehrlich edited that piece. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this has been The Gateway.